Read this book from beginning to end, and when you are close to the end, make sure you are alone. Niagara Falls. That's all I can say. Niagara Falls. Hello everybody, my name is Andrew Casey at Hypersanity Books, and today I'll be reviewing Weapons of an Empress, written by Alexia de Silva, a teenage author who is turning 18 next month. Happy birthday! Now, this particular story is 38 chapters, has a nice short prologue, a nice epilogue that is very, very teary. They're definitely a good book. This particular book is planned for 6 more. She has explained it is another 5 books where it will go between different characters as the protagonist, then back to this character from the first book. Otherwise, we'll get into it. The book is written in first-person perspective. The prologue starts off that way. It goes into the first few chapters to talk about it in a thought-provoking way. The psychology, if you want to call it, of the character, the way she thinks, internal dialogue, the way she challenges herself. There are a couple points within the book where she reveals that she lives alone. It's because her parents are dead. And it's like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. There was some interesting points how this book was written. There are other parts where it felt like the first-person perspective was written in third-person, omniscient, which gave it that other all-knowing feeling, where to be doing more telling than showing, which was the bigger negative to the book. The way some of the chapters ended could have ended a little bit more interesting. However, there were other good points with the way she ended. The strongest points within the story is the story itself. The magic system is interesting. The characters are not a Mary Sue sort of character, which is really good. That she comes from a certain royalty, but isn't hyped up to being so much more. The deuteragonist within the story helps teach her a bit with the magic. I can't say too much with his character without spoilers. It is a thought-provoking book when you think about things from the character's point of view and then think about yourself to be in that character's shoes, if you want to call it, to the reality of being a child and years are going past and you don't really have anyone in your life. And there's that sort of need that isn't fulfilled by your parents because they're dead, according to the story. So, that being said, it had some very challenging moments within the story. There were a lot of interesting points when it did come to the first-person perspective. The way the third person was written felt like it was a little bit conflicting, although there is an element within the story where there's a spiritual character that comes more in the dream form. So that worked really well, and that put it in a whole different perspective when you're talking with the spirituality and the magic system. There was more of a dream sequence and a premonition where one of the chapters ended where it's like, oh, everything's on fire. Why do things happen at special events, on special occasions? That being said, it definitely had that fear factor put into the story. So the festival was the Elementa Festival. It gave a bit of a special occasion, a history. It talked about 2 deities, Voda, fire deity, Vetra, water deity. So that talked about where the water deity is more about healing, crops growing, so good parts of life, whereas the fire is more destructive. It had that 50-50 balance between chaos and not so much chaos. I quite enjoyed how this author explained a lot of those sort of elements into her story. There were other characters in the story, so I found Quan was the deuteragonist, the deuteragonist in the story. Sorry, he had the ability to shapeshift with his magic, and it explained where he had more of the human look in the shapeshifting compared to other people because he didn't inherit magic from his father, so he was sort of like a half-bred. That worked in quite well in an interesting way to the story. His character was lovable, his character was brave. There were other parts it talked about him being lovable to children, turning into more of a fluffy sort of creature to, look after them and cuddle them because they were homeless, poor kids. There was a lot of tragedy that struck throughout the book. The antagonist, Zeos, he was a very interesting antagonist. As far as that goes, it was chaos with him. Everything is chaos, destruction. Now talks about being the deity of chaos. This led to a really good climax, a really good final chapter. And as previously said, the epilogue, you don't see it coming. That was something that really took me by surprise. And with a lot of the elements of the story, a lot of the plot, there was so much that led up to that was done in a way I didn't see it coming. And it worked extremely well. This story has a lot of interesting components to it. It has a lot of characters. And as previously mentioned as well, talking about this book with 6 more books, so 7 in a series, this story is not complete. This story has a lot to go. And besides a few of the other minor gripes, considering she's the first-time author, teenage author, there's a lot to struggle getting published. Otherwise, this book I rate 5 out of 5. It is a really good book, and I think with it has a lot of potential, this story, and I'm curious to see what comes next. There's one thing I do like with a lot of these particular books with a lot of chapters. It keeps the story going, and it allows it to be a page turner and allows you to put the book down to stop. Where I don't like books that have few chapters or 50-page chapters. That feels like too much of a congestion. Otherwise, that's it for now. Otherwise, hit like, subscribe, and I will be looking forward to the next book coming soon. Thank you. One last thing, Alexia De Silva, thank you for requesting me to review your book, and I will say you know how to open a chapter really well. That is one of your other major strong points. Keep up the good work because you're playing a long game.